Hi, everybody. JJ here, and excited to talk to you guys today about some pretty cool ROG peripherals. It is going to be, I think, a pretty exciting stream here. So, for many of you who have been following kind of the history of ROG peripherals, we've definitely been doing a lot over the last few years, and definitely, I think, within the last year, there's been a huge number of kind of releases from us in terms of kind of new additions in terms of everything from, of course, keyboards to mice to headsets to gaming surfaces to kind of everything in between in terms of the overall kind of experience. Let me go ahead and actually mute my phone there. But overall, the really exciting thing I think is that specifically with these two new items that we're going to be talking about today, one being, of course, the brand new Claymore II, and then as well as going to be the Gladius III, which is actually going to come in two different versions. We're going to have a wired and wireless version of it. These, I think, are going to be a really great foundation to really kind of show you the current state of what ROG is going to be doing for 2021 in regards to its kind of peripheral lineup. But I think also at the same time, there's going to be a lot of continuity in history in terms of the really cool things that we've been doing actually for years, where you can actually see right here, I've got the Claymore I, which was released all the way back in 2016. And in a lot of ways, I think it was a bit actually ahead of its time, really kind of actually being one of the first kind of, I think, premier TKL-based designs that was available compared to many other kind of manufacturers, a detachable keyboard design, and then even really kind of the key feature that so many people are kind of blown away with right now with the Claymore II, and that is going to be, of course, the support to be able to go ahead and optionally dock or remove your 10 key, your Numpad. So we're going to be going through, I think, a lot of different aspects in terms of kind of the features, the functions, design, kind of all the key kind of specification points. So excited to give you guys kind of the breakdown through everything. And of course, if you guys have any questions, feel free and go ahead and just kind of let me know there in the chat, and I'll do my best to go ahead and kind of jump into it when I can in terms of giving you guys specifics in terms of anything that kind of we're covering through the stream. But we'll definitely try to give you guys kind of all the key information that you might be interested in terms of understanding whether this might be kind of the right keyboard for you in terms of if you're looking to upgrade, as well as same thing on the mouse side if you're looking to be able to upgrade. So first things first, let's go ahead and take a little bit of a closer look. I think let's go back to kind of 2016, kind of take a little bit of look at the original Claymore before we take a closer look at the Claymore II, and kind of get a little bit of sense of where we've kind of made some changes, what has kind of stayed the same and what has been improved upon. And then we'll, of course, go ahead and take a closer look at the Claymore II. All right, guys, so give me a second here, and I'm just going to go ahead and make sure everything's looking good there in the stream. And so far, it looks like we're looking good there, so no issues in that regard. And hey, Jeff, I see some commentary kind of already regarding for some of the people that are aware of that we are utilizing, of course, a brand new in-house based switch design on the Claymore II, which is going to be our ROG RX switches. And we're definitely going to be actually going and directly kind of comparing the two and help you kind of understand why we felt the need to actually want to go ahead and develop our own in-house switch to be able to provide, I think, some really cool kind of experiential improvements that ultimately can definitely benefit you when you talk about using the keyboard day in and day out. But at the same time, if you're critically really want the flexibility of having a standardized keycap where you can go ahead and maybe kind of swap that out, we've got a wide range of keyboards that, of course, utilize traditional Cherry MX-based switches, so that if you want that flexibility, we'll still definitely be offering that. So no worries in that regard. So let's go ahead and first take a closer look here at this guy. And that is going to be right here. This is the original ROG Claymore. So this was released, like I said, in 2016. And of course, right next to it, we'll go ahead and actually put the Claymore II so you can see a little bit of a kind of side-by-side. See how the two kind of look here. Just so I don't accidentally hit those keys in the event that I'm utilizing them. Give me a sec here. And I've got a secondary keyboard here. And you guys can check it out right here. Okay. All right, so there we go. Let's go ahead and move our Gladius III out of the way right here so you can see a little bit of kind of an obstructed view. And there you guys can see pretty even, right? Pretty similar, I think, when you talk about, of course, the standard dimensions when you talk about the keyboard, but there's definitely going to be some differences in terms of the overall design that we went ahead and integrated. So for one, in terms of the original Claymore, of course, you can see same thing that optionally you could go ahead and attach what we called at that time the bond, which was going to be the numpad. You can put it on the left or the right-hand side. And the same thing is going to be present here in the Claymore II. They're both essentially going to be able to have the cable be disconnected from the body of the keyboard, but there has gone ahead and been a change here. Hey, Jeffrey, happy to have you here on the stream. There has gone ahead and been a change in terms of the cable. So on this generation, we did have a detachable base cable. So this was a micro USB based connection. And now on this generation, we've gone ahead and integrated a USB-C connection. So that is kind of one big difference there in terms of the standard cable. So traditionally, of course, many people have actually been wondering about is, can I use this keyboard in a straight kind of wired scenario? 100%. While the Claymore II has also now been upgraded to be able to support wireless connectivity, so 2.4 gigahertz, low latency, gaming grade wireless, you do have the option to use it just as a traditional wired keyboard, but you're going to have that flexibility to shift over into wireless. So that is also going to be an upgrade and a change that we have from, again, the original Claymore 1. So here you had a detachable keyboard, micro USB. Now you move over to USB-C, and you also not only go over to wired-based connectivity, but you also, of course, have 2.4 gigahertz low latency. Another change is going to be that on the original Claymore, there was no USB pass-through, and here on, of course, this generation, and we'll take a little bit of a closer tour to be able to show you the connections, but here outside of the off and on switch that you have for the wireless and the USB-C connection, there's also a Type A connection, and the Type A connection is a USB pass-through. That's going to be great because maybe you want to be able to go ahead and connect your mouse directly to the keyboard here so that you don't have to run kind of a cable to your system. You can do that. Optionally, maybe another, let me see if I have a cable here for this one. Give me a sec. I think I've got it over here, guys. Here you can see our kind of ROG Delta headset, right? This, you could go ahead and take the kind of your cable right there. Assuming, of course, you've got your power, you could go ahead and then just connect, let's say, something like your headphones, or again, like I said, your mouse, whatever it might be. You can go ahead and route through power. So you can see that's a cool option there as well. So the Claymore 1 didn't have any USB pass-through. And then here we now also have USB pass-through. So that is going to be another upgrade that you're going to have on the Claymore 2 as opposed to on the Claymore 1. Okay. Let's see if I can plug this in without looking at the connection. Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to see it. All right, let's not worry about that right now. Oh, I was able to get it. All right. So that is going to be another difference. Now, another kind of a feature differential, well, actually, another similarity will be this model did have actually hardware level control. So there's always going to kind of be, I think, a certain set of individuals that always kind of have a preference to be able to do things directly on board the keyboard. So that means not necessarily having to utilize software. There has been a number of big really changes in terms of the software-based design that we have, as well as the microcontroller that we use within the keyboard. This is a very early generation microcontroller, still very good quality. We had actually onboard memory at this time, which was pretty rare for a lot of keyboards, meaning that you could have multiple profiles stored on here. And that's the same for the Claymore. You can have up to 5 profiles that are built into the actual keyboard. And so you have that parity on the 2, but there is a difference. Like, so here in this generation, if you want to kind of customize certain aspects of the keyboard while linked to the software, if it was kind of in RGB mode, you would have to actually unsynchronize this actual keyboard to be able to make those management options. Now for the Claymore 2 generation, you don't actually have to do that. You can go ahead and have the actual keyboard still in, let's say it's synchronized pattern or its kind of color scheme, and then from there you can go ahead and make individual controls to many different adjustments to the keyboard. So that's going to be another kind of area of improvement, but again, both are going to offer you the onboard 5 memory profiles. In the Claymore 2, the other thing that's going to be consistent here is going to be through the function key and the arrow keys, you can do hardware level lighting adjustments. So if you want to kind of shift to different RGB modes, if you want to shift in terms of the brightness, you can do that directly on a hardware level. For on-the-fly macro recording, they both supported that. This model also supports on-the-fly macro recording so that you can go ahead and do those adjustments. Of course, the most kind of precise and flexibility when it comes to kind of macro recording is going to be available to you in the software. So that is going to be another area that there's kind of going to be a similarity, but there's going to be a difference. Now, because this also has 2.4 gigahertz low latency wireless, some kind of nice little additions, and we'll take a closer look here in a little bit. But this model does kind of try to make things a little bit simpler and easier for you guys. So one of the cool things here is if I go ahead and pull out the actual, you can see right here, the RF adapter. You can see right here, the RF adapter just stores in and to actually a magnetic dock, which is really nice. So you don't have to kind of worry about losing it. So that is gone ahead and been built in there. So that's a really cool option that you have. Okay. The other kind of big difference, and we'll take a closer look directly on our secondary camera so you can kind of see the difference between the optical switches and the traditional switches. This uses Cherry MX switches, and here we have our ROG RX based switches. And so the big difference here is these are going to be optical based switches, and the benefit you're going to have from the optical based switch is going to be durability. They're generally going to be more durable. They're going to have a longer rated lifespan. They're going to be faster because you don't have to necessarily worry about the debounce delay effect because of the actual triggering, the signal that gets actually passed through that you have with your kind of traditional mechanical based switch. But we went ahead and actually made some changes as opposed to kind of optical switches that have existed out there. We have our own designed internal actual stem and housing, and then the keycap. And that was done so that we could actually offer improvements in terms of the actual lighting. You can actually see as we get a little bit of a closer shot, the actual legends and the font is going to be offset on a traditional Cherry MX keyboard. Here we can center weight the actual font and the legend. We're going to have actually better illumination through the center and through the sides. We can also get very good illumination on side legends, which is pretty cool. And there's a couple of the really kind of cool benefits, specifically one that has to do with what's called force deviation, or what sometimes people call keycap wobble, where you actually, when you depress actually on the keycap, your finger doesn't necessarily always hit the middle. It might hit the corners, and there's actually a bit of deviation, and that can cause inconsistencies at the way something gets actuated. And on the RX-based switch, because of the way that we've designed the keycap and the stem, and a hollow core, which has 4 points now, it makes for very consistent depression. So pretty sweet here. So that kind of, I think, goes over, a lot of the primary kind of key items that are going to be similar, but also different between the ROG Claymore 1 and the ROG Claymore 2. One other thing, and some people kind of wonder about or ask questions about, is the actual top casing material here was aluminum. Here on the Claymore 2, there's actually also going to be a top casing. It's a little bit thinner. It's still aluminum, but it still has a nice kind of composition to it. I would say that what we've gone ahead and tried to do here with the material composition is also try to take the feedback that we have from people from the actual original Claymore, that while the aluminum is really nice, the aluminum also does kind of pick up a bit more kind of fingerprints and oils. It makes it a little bit more streaky over time. And what we found is actually with this material composition, along with it being a redesign that kind of more closely fits the ROG kind of design language over the last few years, is that it's actually much less to kind of show you fingerprints, which we felt was an important kind of, side feature that we wanted to introduce for a lot of the individuals that kind of want to have these kind of clean setups and don't want to necessarily have to kind of be thinking about those things. Hey Hassan, no updates right now on any RGB fans. We will have, of course, our XF 120 fans be coming out in the not too distant future, and you can definitely make sure to keep it tuned to our social media channels for any updates, or join our PCDR Facebook group. But let's go ahead and now take a closer look at kind of the switches, show you some of the differences in terms of kind of the design functionality, and we'll kind of keep going a little bit deeper into things here. So I will also make a note that some people kind of wonder about, is that what options can you get the Claymore 2 in terms of the actual switches. So the default that we will have available will be the RX Reds, and then a little bit later around Q3 we will have the tactile versions, so those will be the RX Blues. Okay, and we'll show you kind of the product page and kind of some of the key information if you're kind of wondering about, actuation, travel, kind of some of those other kind of key aspects. But very smooth, clean, consistent experience. And if you're kind of already wondering on some initial feedback, we already have actually had these switches out for a little bit of time on the market. The first keyboard that we had that we released it with, which is right here. This is what we called our Strict Scope RX. So this has been a really nice keyboard. I love this keyboard. The overall, kind of like I said, the reduction in the key wobble, the optical performance, the build quality, the fit and feels really nice. Price point is going to be much lower than what you're going to have with the Claymore 2, which is MSRP at $270. But of course, this is not wireless. But if you're looking for a great option that features these RX-based switches, then definitely check out the ROG Strict Scope RX, okay? All right, guys. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of closer look at kind of the switch difference, and then we'll talk a little bit about kind of the setup considerations on why you might want to actually be able to remove the bond unit and be able to kind of go from the left and the right and how it kind of can work out in different scenarios. And we'll also take a little bit of a closer look at the bond and how these optional buttons work right here, as well as the volume wheel, because I know a lot of people really like the volume wheel design that we have here on the bond. So let me go ahead and set things up for you guys. And give me 1 second. And I'll also check to see if there's any kind of questions here. So looks like we got a question here, is that what switches does the Claymore use, right? And so again, on the original Claymore, we were using standard Cherry MX-based switches, and really kind of the most popular that we saw consistently available were going to be kind of reds and browns. Of course, some people do like the tactiles with the blues, but I think especially for a lot of gamers and people that don't necessarily want to be as loud, you know, the blues, while popular, weren't necessarily always popular as the reds and the browns would be. On the Claymore II, though, these are going to be our ROG RX switches, and we will offer these first in the RX red variant, and then we will have the RX blue variant. So we will have a linear and we will have a tactile based version. And that's what we're going to actually take a little bit of a closer look at right now so that you can actually see the difference. So somebody's also asking about availability. We'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the stream, but these actually are already currently pre-listed on our ASUS eStore here for the United States. You will see actual availability roll out progressively over the end of the month and moving into the beginning of kind of June timeframe. We expect to start seeing kind of our channel partners, so different e-tailers, start listing it. Like I said, probably in the following kind of next 2 weeks, and I think probably by about the end of May, and like I said, first week of June, you'll start to see kind of more prevalent availability. And then, like I said, also as we move into Q3, you'll see the Claymore II, but with the RX blues, if that's what you're looking for in terms of a tactile-based keyboard. Okay. All right. So give me 1 sec here, guys. All right. So we're going to go ahead and put kind of the Claymore 1 and the Claymore 2 side by side here so that we can take a closer look at the switches. And then we'll take a look at the bond. We'll also take a little bit of a look at kind of everything that comes inside the box so you kind of have a clear understanding of everything that's included there. Okay. All right, guys. Adjust my cable here. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. Now, one of the cool things you'll see right here is that I've gone ahead and already detached the cable, and that's kind of one of the cool elements here too, is that you do have the flexibility that if you want to customize your cable, you kind of want to swap it out, even though it does come with a very high quality premium based cable included inside the box. You're going to have that flexibility. So if you want to, you know, like I said, change things up specific maybe to your setup, you can do that. An example would be like right here. You'll see that this comes with just a nice braided cable. That's a USB-C to USB-C based cable. There is an adapter that comes inside the box, right? But let's say maybe you had something like this, like a custom, you know, USB-C cable that you wanted to go ahead and use for, you know, for just kind of aesthetic purposes. You can do that. So that's the cool thing about having a detachable cable design. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and I think put these maybe back to back here. Try to show you guys here, and I'm just going to line them up here. All right, guys, I think we've got it pretty well lined up there. So let's go ahead and show you a little bit of a closer look now between the Claymore 1, the Claymore 2, and between the Cherry MX switches and then your ROG RX switches. All right, guys, so here you can see I've got the two keyboards, right? This is going to be, of course, the Claymore 2. This is your RX-based switches, and this is the this is the Claymore 1 here. Let me see if I can go ahead and make the lighting profiles the same between the two. just so that we kind of can have a little bit of kind of consistency there. And what we're going to go ahead and also do is we will go ahead and pull off the keycap so that we can take a closer look at the difference. But one of the first differences you'll see if you kind of take a look here at the F6, and then you also take a look at the F6 right here, you'll see that the actual, there we go, maybe try to make it a little bit more balanced, there we go, is that you'll actually see that on the Cherry MX, all your legends are going to be top weighted at the top, right? And then here, actually, you're going to see that they're actually center weighted. So I think they actually look a little bit cleaner. We also have a better consistent lighting distribution from the top and then actually from the sides. The side also features a transparent housing, just like you would have on the RGB switches on the Claymore 1. So here we're going to go ahead and just go into our Armory Crate software, and I'm just going to change up the color scheme, make sure that it's kind of consistent here. Okay, so we're both of these should be pretty much in rainbow modes. So we're going to try to keep it fairly parity here, you guys. There we go. Switching that into. All right. So yeah, that's about the same. We can actually speed up the lighting patterns. So there we go. Okay. So if we go ahead and just remove things, we're going to remove one of the keycaps, and you guys can kind of take a look and see. Okay. So here we'll just go ahead and remove maybe the F6, and we'll also go ahead and remove the F6 on the Claymore. All right, guys, so you can actually see right here that here's the difference. So here's the top weighted LED, and here you can actually see it's essentially located LED, okay? And you'll also find that there's kind of a difference in the stem design, right? So here you can actually see that there you have your switch, right? And this is an optical based switch, so it actually uses actually light, right? It's light triggered. And if we take a little bit of a closer look right there, you'll see that there's the actual 4-point stems that actually connect right there. And here you actually have a center, right? Now, the disadvantage of kind of having this center-based stem is that it actually causes there to be a bit more of what's called force deviation. So when you actually depress this, it actually can skew much more heavily to kind of the left, to the right, to these different kind of corners, where it actually causes a little bit of wobble. And it's something you just kind of get used to over time. You can still have very good quality experience, but there is definitely kind of a difference. Whereas that here on these switches, because there's actually 4 points right here, those 4 points actually allow there to be much less force deviation in the actual the corners, so that when you go ahead and depress this, you're going to get a more consistent experience. And so that's going to be one of the really key fundamental differences, right? Is that generally what you're going to have here on your traditional switches is usually a rated lifespan of around 50 million. And now here on our optical, we're going to have 100 million. We're also going to generally have, like I said, more consistent and balanced lighting distribution because it's going to be center weighted. We can also do cool things where we can have lighting illumination on the side. So you can even see if I tilt that up, you can clearly see the lighting illumination there for the media keys, which we actually have right there, where you can see there on the angle. And even there, the kind of the profile keys, if you can see right there at the top, where you can clearly see the lighting profile, and that wouldn't really be something that you could as easily do on these type of switches right there. So that's kind of another key differential between the two again. And so we have many keyboards that still utilize your standard based switch design here in terms of a Cherry MX, so that if you do want the flexibility of changing out a keycap, definitely check out our like Flare, our Strict Scope, or the Falcon. We have many keyboards that will give you these great options if you want to be able to swap them out. But in a lot of our polling, and I'd love to hear your guys' feedback in the community, we actually know that while there are definitely enthusiasts that do swap out their keycaps, the actual vast majority of users don't change their keycaps out. They keep the keycaps that come with the keyboard. So our goal here was to really try to improve the overall experience that you had when using the keyboard, when you're hitting those keys, the lifespan, the performance, and the durability, and the lighting quality. And that's what we feel that we've achieved here with the RX-based switch. Okay, so let me go ahead and switch that back out for you guys here. So give me 1 second to just kind of get this resituated here. All right, and we'll keep, then we'll kind of also take a little bit closer look at some of the included accessories here. So let me just get these switches back on here. There we go. Okay, great. let me go ahead and actually leave the Claymore up here, and then we'll take a look and see kind of what comes included inside here before we kind of take a little bit of a closer look here. All right, guys. Okay, so next up, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about kind of what comes included with the accessories here, included inside the box. And we'll go ahead and keep moving things along here. So the first thing would be, of course, of course, when you pick up your Claymore, this is going to be your box, right? It's going to kind of got a little bit of new design, pretty straightforward. Looks pretty nice if you guys want to kind of set it up and get it propped up in your rooms, wherever it might kind of be. You're first going to get a magnetic wrist rest. Okay, so that's very nice because it will actually just directly magnetize right here. You can see right there, it's going to hang. It's going to drop a little bit because, of course, we're going against gravity, but it holds in place right there. But it's just very nice because it'll allow you to just kind of dock into place there. It's got a nice little bit of an angle to it, a little bit larger than some standard wrist rests, so that if you go ahead and actually keep your hands down towards the bottom keys right down here, because traditionally when you're gaming, you might be utilizing, of course, things like your control or, of course, your WASD keys a little bit more. Your hand's going to be positioned a little bit more downward. So you want essentially just a little bit more wrist coverage space, right? If you're going to kind of move this down. Whereas if you're typing up, then that can work great. So that's actually a nice little bit of a design kind of, design consideration that we went ahead and included there. So you're going to get your wrist rest. You're going to get your premium braided cable here, USB-C to USB-C cable. That's going to come, of course, included inside the box. You're then also going to get 2 adapters right here. And with the 2 adapters, you're going to have some nice flexibility. So, of course, one will allow you to go ahead and adapt this right here, USB-C to USB Type A. So if you're using maybe an older system, maybe you have a laptop, maybe you've got a desktop, and you don't have a native USB-C connector, you don't have to worry about that. You can go ahead and utilize the adapter, and you're good to go. Okay, so we do give you an adapter inside the box. Next, you're also going to have then an actual, let's say, an extender here to have a little bit more flexibility. One of the things that kind of some people don't necessarily realize is that when it comes to utilizing RF, is that it's not as common as I would say Bluetooth, kind of interoperability and kind of transmission signaling issues. But in some situations, when you put this small adapter into the back of a motherboard, there can actually be kind of interference from a number of other devices that might be transmitting right in that kind of proximity space. And that can actually cause sometimes inconsistencies with the signal. So in an attempt to be able to kind of help you maximize that, we do give you a little bit more flexibility. So one of the options that you have available to you and the way that this would work is, I can show you guys here actually on the secondary cam. So give me 1 second here. So I will show you here on the cam. So right here, you can see that we have the adapter, right? And there you have the RF, right? So you just would put that in there. And then from there, here you've got your braided cable, right? Attach that. And now you have essentially kind of like an extender, right? Or essentially something that you could reposition in a different location. So this connection right here would go to your PC, would go to the other side of your PC, and then this maybe you could kind of put by your desk, you could put it kind of by the side of your chassis, you could put it in any kind of number of different locations just to give you a little bit more flexibility. So this is, I think, a nice little kind of accessory. You might not realize that it's inside the box, but it does come included inside the box. So again, the kind of the items that you're going to get inside, one is going to be the magnetic wrist rest. 2 is going to be your actual braided USB-C cable, USB-C to USB-C. Then you're also going to have your USB-C to Type A based adapter. And then you're also going to have essentially the adapter to let you go ahead and extend this so that if you don't necessarily want to connect it directly to your system where you might have potential interference-based concerns, you don't have to do that. And again, right here, we'll take a closer look on a little bit of a side tour right here, but you do have an actual magnetic storage dock for the actual RF transmitter. So You can see right there. So let's go ahead and take a look here again at our keyboard. So you can actually see right there, there's an empty bay, and it just docks right in there. And there you can also see the USB-C port, the on and off switch, and then from there also the pass-through port, right? So you're all good to go right there. Let's go ahead and actually, I guess, keep doing this a little bit right here. We can do a little bit of a tour of all your connectors. So you can see right there, there's your USB-C connected. There's your on and off there for the wireless transmission. And let's go ahead and give me one sec right here. So if we take a little bit closer look right here, you've got the ROGI logo. This is RGB. And here you've actually got the battery status indicator. This can also be set to be synced with the actual RGB lighting. And also will actually show you different color lighting schemes depending actually on kind of certain status. So if like goes down to a low battery state, it would go to red. And if it was in fast charging mode, it would actually kind of go to purple. And here it actually shows you that it's charging and the actual current start state. If you go over here, we have some really nice, just lightly illuminated small white LEDs for different kind of functions. So you can see as an example, if I was to go ahead and do caps lock, it will illuminate. There's a total of 5 of those that are present that are available to you. When you also kind of tilt this up, you can see that you've got media keys there for kind of play, pause, stop, fast forward, right? Mute your audio, raise your audio. You can have your fast charging kind of USB button right there. And also, see if I can get it in frame there. You can see right here are your hardware level controls for actually lighting adjustment and control. So if you want to be able to go ahead and adjust the lighting and change the modes without the software, you can do that directly via the keyboard. So just the function key and those hardware based keys. And then also, see right there, it's a little bit harder to see, but we do have your profile keys. And so you have actually multiple profiles that are available to you as well. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So a total of those 5 different profiles that are available that you can customize. And then lastly, you can also see that there's a macro. So you can also do a hardware level on the fly macro recording as well. So that is also going to be available. So that's pretty much all kind of the key area aspects on the physical design. So the next thing that I think we definitely want to kind of show off is going to be the bond. But before I do get to the bond, I do actually want to touch on one other thing, and actually I'll have to show this to you on a secondary shot as well. But one of the other things that we actually did revise between the Claymore 1 and the Claymore 2 is going to actually be kind of what's called the pads, or essentially these kind of non-slip feet that you kind of sometimes put on a product. And so you can see right here, these one actually had pretty large rubber feet. So there's one right here. There's another right here that's on the actual adjustable foot. And the Claymore 2 also has adjustable foot. So you can see right there, they swing out and there it's there. Now, these worked pretty well, but it did have a little bit more slip. So if you can actually see, as I push this down, if I was to kind of move a little bit, it will move up, even though it's not going to move kind of super quickly. It will kind of move up a little bit. So the actual traction wasn't necessarily, I think, as high as it could be in terms of kind of helping to stabilize this. And so it might kind of seem subtle, but we actually further improved upon this with the actual Claymore 2 design. So on the Claymore 2, the Claymore actually 2 has a dual texture based design, and I'll have to show this to you on a closer shot, but there's actually 2 textures that we utilize for this rubber feet, which actually allow it to actually have kind of a, you can see right here, now I'm pushing it, I'm a pretty big guy, I'm about 6'2", a little bit over 200 pounds, and I'm pushing it forward and it's much harder. I can barely kind of move it forward. So it actually maintains much more stability and rigidity at kind of keeping in place. So I think if you're using this like on a nice clean table or kind of clean smooth surface, that's nice. This kind of won't really be moving around that much. It actually has much better kind of stick to the actual surface area, which I find really, really nice. So let's actually take a closer look here specifically so you can see kind of what I'm talking about here. So give me a second to see if I can illuminate this for you guys, and we'll take a closer look here. Okay, so here, this is the base of the Claymore II, and it is a little bit hard to notice, but there is actually a little bit of a different texture. You might be able to notice kind of there's one little bit of a darker zone right there, and then the other zone is just a little bit lighter, right? You can also then kind of see that again here on this portion, the bottom, where there's kind of a little bit kind of more glossy tone to one stripe, and then to the other side it's a little bit different. And again, what I've found here is that this just allows the actual base to be much more consistent, or that when you kind of put it down and you have a clean surface, it gives you much better adhesion so that it doesn't move around. So overall provides for a really nice kind of consistent experience. Okay, so that is going to be kind of another little kind of item that you're going to have that's going to be pretty cool here. So let's go ahead and now take a look here at what we have next, which is going to be with the bond. Okay, so this is going to be the bond. If you're kind of wondering about, we can of course take a closer look at it right here. So here you can see the bond connected. You've got a nice volume wheel. This is metal, so it's got a really nice smooth kind of bearing feel to it. It doesn't feel sticky at all. It's really nice and smooth. This will work in 2 steps in terms of volume increment adjustment. So if you go down, you'll just see it kind of go from 22 to 20 to 18, or same thing, you can go ahead and kind of move it back up and forth, right? Very, very nice. It's very, very clean. I'll take a look here at a moment and questions in the chat. Right here, then you also have these customizable keys. So these are 4 customizable keys that will work default as media keys. So things like, you know, play and pause and kind of other layers of adjustment will be default. But you can go ahead and customize these within the Armory Crate software. And then from there, of course, you have your standard keys right there. Now, a change that we made for this generation is these attach here very nicely via just a magnetic connection. So they will just kind of rest back on here when you're not utilizing them. And that's it. Some people ask, though, can you use this without actually docking this? No. So you will have to dock this to the keyboard to actually be able to utilize it. This does not work wirelessly. So it does need to be docked to the actual keyboard to be able to utilize it. Okay. So let me go ahead and switch this over here, and we'll get it docked so you guys can actually take a look at it. See what it looks like there. And then we'll do also a little bit, I guess, of a little bit of an audio test. It's always a little bit hard when you kind of do an audio test across the internet, but if you guys are kind of interested in that, we can go ahead and do that, okay? So how would you go ahead about doing this? It's very simple. You'll actually see that on the side right here, we have this nice little just magnetic cover. Just pull out the magnetic cover. There's a brand new rail system that was gone ahead and designed and developed for this. Now, part of the reason why we went ahead and revised this is that in the first generation, while the dock worked well, it didn't have, I think, the level of rigidity that we found users kind of really wanted to have it feel that it had a really kind of secure and solid fitment to it. So we went ahead and revised that. So you now have much better locking, much better durability, and long-term performance when you're utilizing the bond, essentially this numpad, with the actual keyboard, okay? So right here, you can see then, I'm just gonna go ahead and remove this. And then from there, just gonna go ahead and dock this. And that's it, super simple. And now I've gone ahead and successfully made my unit from that kind of traditional 10 key, TKL type keyboard, to now that I have a full-size keyboard. But the really cool part to this is you can of course see I've got it on one side, but with the Claymore II, you have the flexibility that you can go ahead and change things up. If you don't want to have it just on one side, you can go ahead and change it up. And the reason why you might want to do that is, you know, when we take a look kind of at an angle for gaming, right? And so let's say I've got my keyboard and my mouse right here. Go ahead and give myself a little bit of space, right? I move this out, and you know, if we're gaming right here, and you have your kind of your mouse right here, and you've got your hand right here, you've got your keyboard right here. Actually, you're putting a little bit more strain here on this area, on the entirety of kind of your shoulder and your arm. And there's also kind of just a little bit kind of more resistant movement. So the nice thing is that when you want to, you can just kind of remove this off there, right? You could also, of course, make this wireless. so that you don't then have to worry about any kind of cords, and you're still getting low latency performance. And then you could go ahead and tighten things up. So you could kind of slant it and allow for just a little bit more flexibility for how you want to position things up. So that makes it really nice being able to kind of move back and forth there. So that is, I think, a nice level of flexibility that you have available to you. But you can also go ahead and kind of do things a little bit more than that. So one of the other options would be, if we now take the other side, we could go ahead and give you more flexibility by now putting this bond on the left-hand side. So again, I just slide it over, and now you can see right there, I've got it moved over onto the opposite side. And so the benefit now is, you can see right here, is that, you know, if I've got my hands here on the WASD keys, I can easily go ahead and now adjust the volume right here. So I could just pivot over. I could even kind of do this pinky movement right here if I wanted to, but I could keep my hands here. So essentially I can just move much more easily from the WASD section, the control, and if I want to maybe have my macros right here at my top, I can move over and kind of hit that with one of these keys on my left-hand side while still leaving my hand always on my mouse, right? So it just gives you a lot more flexibility to really kind of tailor this for what makes sense for your kind of setup, right? I like this for kind of gaming scenarios that here you can still totally feel like you're normally gaming in a normal kind of nice, tight kind of setup. You can angle it to what works best for you. If you want to go position it this way, you can position it this way, keep it nice, tight, and clean. You can move your mouse up and down wherever you want, right? But then you can adjust the volume, the macro keys, and any of these num keys. And of course, you can go into the Armoury Crate software and map, you know, different keys and different functions to different functions to different keys if you wanted to. And then, of course, when you don't need this, just remove it. And then now, of course, you just have your standard TKL keyboard, right? So you're all kind of good to go. So that is pretty sweet right there. Let me just see right here if we've got any kind of questions that have popped up there, because I know that we've kind of gone over a lot that has kind of come up there. So give me 1 second here. Yeah, so Christian, you're asking about kind of audio tests. Yeah, I think here in a moment here, I can go ahead and do that for you between kind of the reds and the blues, kind of give you a little bit of experience. I will tell you that already off the bat, when you talk about kind of the audio experience between kind of the reds and the blues, I will say that the reds already kind of sound a bit softer and a little bit smoother than what you would have with a traditional red. It's actually closer that if you've ever used an O-ring to kind of dampen the sound a bit on a red keyboard, that it's a little bit closer to that. And then there also tends to be, in my opinion, a little bit less kind of chatter, and that comes down to the fact that there tends to be less wobble when you're hitting the keys because of the actual design that we talked about, where you've got that 4-point stem. And that allows just for kind of a more consistent level of depression that's smoother. So you get overall kind of, I think, a cleaner sound. So it works really well in that regard. So let's go ahead and actually do a little bit of an audio test for you guys, and we'll go ahead and see what your guys' thoughts there. So we'll go first, I think here. This is going to be with the reds. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just be quiet here for a moment, guys, and let you guys hear what kind of it sounds like on the reds, and then we're going to go ahead and move over to the blues. Okay, so RX switches, reds, audio test. All right, guys. Okay, so that's with the reds. Now let's go ahead and move over to your blues. And we'll try to see if we can maybe even do a little bit of a side-by-side, a little bit quicker. Here's the blues. All right, guys, so there you guys go. You can hear the reds and the blues, and we'll just do one kind of a little bit of last quick kind of just, let's do kind of 3 to 4 depressions just with a single key on the reds, and then again, a single key on the blues. So here we go. Single key on the blues first. Now single key on the reds. All right, guys. So hopefully that helped you to have a little bit of a clarity. I think they actually both sound really good. I'm traditionally find that traditional blues tend to be a little bit too loud for me because I do a lot of work throughout the day. I want something that it's kind of responsive, feels really good, but also isn't inherently too loud. But if you really do like that tactile experience, I really have enjoyed using this. And I actually normally use this engineering sample for the blues during my live streams, and I've never had anybody kind of comment that they've been too loud or kind of obnoxious. And so that just goes to show you that I think overall the experience for the people that have been watching our streams here, our PC DIY live streams every Friday, haven't had any issues with it. So there you go, and between the two. So you've got the reds and you've got the blues. All right, guys. So I think I'm going to go ahead and be able to bring you guys a link up here to show you essentially that we do currently have pre-order available right now for the Claymore II, available on the ASUS eStore. As I talked about, the MSRP for this guy is going to be $279, and it will be, as like I said, rolling out to essentially e-tailers over the coming weeks and moving into the next month. But overall, I think this is going to be a fantastic option for those of you really looking kind of for, I think, an end game keyboard that really is giving you great build quality, high level of performance, a high degree of functionality, I think a great experience and a lot of flexibility in terms of how you can set up and kind of work with it. This is going to be a really, really great choice. So hopefully you guys are kind of interested in checking this guys out. I will give you guys the link here in the chat here in a moment if you kind of want to check everything out. But that pretty much covers that. And again, if maybe you're interested in something like you know, what ROG is offering in terms just of a high quality keyboard option, but you don't necessarily want to jump all the way to the Claymore II, I'll just give you a couple of other quick recommendations that you might want to keep in mind, okay? One right here, this is a great option. This is going to be, well, sorry, that's our Claymore, which is no longer available. This is going to be the ROG Strix Scope TKL. So we've actually got this in a couple of different variants, including a cool electro punk based version. It's got a detachable keyboard, of course, per key RGB lighting, onboard memory, and this, of course, uses traditional Cherry MX switches. So if you want to be able to go ahead and customize your keycaps, this is a great option for you. Very price aggressive, does still have a detachable USB-C cable that's on this model. This is a great option for those of you that are looking for something that's compact and still going to give you a great ROG experience, and of course is fully ASUS OraSync compatible. And if you're looking for something even more compact but that's wireless, we have the ROG Falcon, which is of course going to offer you a lot of really cool functions and features, and will give you wireless, and is also using Cherry MX based switches. If you want to check out the optical switches that we talked about at a lower price point than the Claymore, then check this guy out. This is going to be the ROG Strix Scope RX. And this one, it will kind of vary in terms of the overall price point. Let me see if I can actually bring up the current MSRP for it. So give me 1 second. But this is also going to be considerably lower in price than what you're going to have with the Claymore. And here you will be able to get the RX-based switches in terms of reds. It has a USB pass-through based design. This is a full 10 key, kind of more traditional based design. But this actually has an IP rating to it, which is cool because of the optical based switches. You still get all the benefits that we talked about with the RX based switches, but you're just going to have that at a lower price point and kind of a more traditional keyboard. Still very clean, compact, kind of thin bezel based design. A lot of the key elements that we talked about are going to be kind of consistent between the two, but of course this is going to be a wired based model and not wireless. Okay. Okay, guys. So I think that wraps up everything that we wanted to kind of touch on there with the Claymore II. Let me go ahead and see if I can bring you guys up the link here in a moment, and then we will go ahead and talk about the next guy. That's going to be this guy. This is going to be the Gladius III. So this is going to be our latest generation mouse. We're going to talk about some really cool things that this mouse is doing, including being the first mouse on the market that is going to offer you the flexibility of changing out your actual switches to not only a traditional mechanical switch, but also an optical switch. So if you actually wanted to have an optical switch in both your mouse and your keyboard, you're going to be able to do it with ROG. So give me 1 second right here, guys. So Quentin actually is asking here, before I go ahead and just bring you guys up the link right here, Quentin was asking about For the PBT keycaps, I know for some of you kind of out there that were interested in having kind of a higher performing keycap based option, we do have our PBT keycaps, and those will actually work because those are just Cherry MX based keycaps. You can use that on any one of our Cherry MX based keyboards. So that would include the actual scope. Okay. All right, guys. So just let me see here if I can bring up to you the link here. Right. And MSRP on the Strict Scope RX is $129.99, but we actually have sometimes run a promo on it, so that is kind of one to kind of monitor there if, like I said, you're looking for a lower price point. And here, guys, I will share the pre-order link for you guys, so give me 1 second here. All right, and we've got it right here. Perfect. Okay, guys, just loading this up here, and then we're going to jump into giving you guys the details on the Gladius 3. So the cool thing about the Gladius 3 is the Gladius 3 kind of really is a continued evolution, I think, of what we were offering when it came to kind of the de facto ROG gaming mouse. Many of you might not necessarily realize that one of the cool elements that we did have in terms of the original Gladius was one, it had the actual ability to have the customizable switches, or even with the first generation model, it had a detachable cable, it had a high quality, no acceleration optical sensor. So a lot of really kind of the hallmark items that we've wanted to have, I think, for multiple generations on our mice really did actually start there with with the original Gladius, and now has kind of been continued on with the Gladius 2, and of course now with the Gladius 3. And so it's going to be, I think, a really great representation again of what kind of we've been trying to do as we move forward now, kind of in 2021, and even kind of moving beyond that. All right, guys. So here we go. The Claymore II is going to be linked there for you guys if you want to be able to check it out there in the ASUS eStore. All right, guys. Great. So let's go ahead and now take a closer look here at our Gladius 3. So we've got a couple of different mice here. And here we can actually see the original Gladius. This actually came out quite some time ago. There's actually quite a number of you out there that actually still have this mouse. Still actually my favorite mice in terms of its overall kind of fit, feel, weight, quality, and overall kind of experience. At its time, like I said, it introduced a lot of really cool things. Really still we're really the only vendor that's offering you this innovative option to be able to customize your switches. Consistently been offering kind of a detachable cable design, high quality, kind of no creak construction in terms of the overall build quality. And then from there, of course, that real focus, of course, on high quality tuning performance, whether it's going to be the sensor or the components. But we're definitely going to dive into some of the more specifics that really kind of, I think, set apart the Gladius 3 in terms of what we've done to kind of continue to revise design. So similar to kind of what we talked about with the original Claymore, what things that we've kept consistent all the way from the Gladius 1 or even here with the Gladius 2. Some items that are consistent is going to, of course, be similar shape. We'll actually compare all three of here's in a moment, but overall kind of similar body shape. This has been a little bit more refined, a little bit more clean, a little bit lighter weight as well. You're going to, of course, have the detachable cable design. The original had a micro USB. Now the new one is, of course, a USB Type-C. This will actually support for you guys tri-mode level connectivity. So that means that you can support not only USB-C wired connection, but you can also have gaming grade 2.4 gigahertz wireless, and then you can also even have Bluetooth. So you can go ahead and use this across a wide range of devices. Okay, high quality base feet, although for this generation, these are using our new Omni feet, 100% PTFE, really, really high performance, as well as, of course, a couple of other really cool kind of features and functions that we've introduced. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of a closer look at all three of the Gladius so you guys can take a kind of sense of kind of the shape and the dimensions here. So give me 1 second here, line this up for you guys. All right. And there we go. All right, so let's get the Gladius 1, Gladius 2, and the Gladius 3. All right, guys, so let's take a closer look here. So here you can see from the top, this is the Gladius 1. This is the Gladius 2 here, and you can see pretty similar designs. And then now the Gladius 3. Now the Gladius 3 will be offered in a wireless and wired version, so just keep that in mind. But of course, the wireless version does also support wired operation. So you can see here, this was a little bit more kind of a gunmetal type of color. You can see a little bit of the overhanging, but still hallmarks even at that generation were the independent actual design there in terms of the buttons. That was so that you didn't get false depressions from hitting, let's say, the left side affecting the right side. Some mice had actually what's called a unified actually shell, where these actually are not independently treated, right? And you can see that was carried through in terms of that 2, and then move over the 3. Now this is going to be a little bit more compact in terms of its overall design, but it still will be a bit larger than something like a Keras, which would even be a little bit smaller and even a lighter weight based mouse. But this is still going to be pretty lightweight in terms of its overall characteristics. The Gladius 3 wired will be a little bit lighter weight, and I'll go over kind of the dimensions there in a moment. Now, if we go ahead and flip it over here, we are going to see a couple of other differences as well. So compared to kind of the first generation, if we take a closer look right here, to be able to actually access the internal housing and the switches, you actually had to take off the PTFE feet, but you don't have to do that actually with the second generation or the third generation. The actual ability to remove it doesn't affect the actual feet design, so that's really nice. And directly below, you can see you have some functionality here from the pairing and from the actual profile switch functionality. You can also, for reference, if you're case wondering, is that when the mouse feet are 100% these skates or these feet, when they're 100% white, that means that it's 100% pure PTFE, which is the ideal standard for kind of smoothness and acceleration. It's very nice and slick. We actually have done a huge amount of testing for omnidirectional based performance so that you get really, really good essentially movement and glide with these actual skates. And the Gladius 3 will actually come included with a second set inside the box, which is pretty nice. Okay, so let me actually go ahead and kind of show you, I think, everything that kind of comes along here in this box here, you guys. So here's your Gladius 3 box. It's got a cool little box where you can open this guy up. You're going to get one, which is going to be the actual cable. This is going to be our paracord cable, what we call our ROG Paracord cable. It's a very lightweight and soft cable. We actually have found that when we compared this to competitors, it's twice as soft. We actually had to develop an entirely new weaving process to actually be able to develop this. It's really, really smooth, really lightweight, so that you don't have to kind of worry about drag or any type of resistance as you're moving this around. It, of course, is a USB-C connection. And the other nice element, again, is that if you did want to have something like a custom cable set up, you do have an actual non-recessed connector. So if we again go back here to this shot, be able to show you guys here. You can actually see right there, there's your USB-C. You could go ahead and use your own cable if you wanted to, so that if you had something kind of nice and colorful and different, you could do that. Or of course, you can use the included ROG Paracord cable. That's entirely, of course, up to you, your choice. Next, you're also going to have right here is going to be essentially just like we had with the Claymore II. You're going to have the extension. The extension will allow you to go ahead and take the RF transmitter and be able to go ahead and have some more flexibility with it. So I'll just use the one that we have here from the Claymore II as an example, right? But it does actually dock directly inside of this. So you can see right there, just docks in. And then if I want to take it out, I can remove it. Really simple. So we take a look right here, guys. You can see right there, it stores in. If I want to be able to remove it, then just docks in place. So you don't have to worry about losing it. There you go. Okay. And this works the same way where, again, just take your cable. You would attach your cable to your system, then attach the adapter here, right? And you're good to go, okay? So you can see right there, that's how I would go ahead and set that up in the event that, like I said, maybe I was having some interference or something like that just by plugging it directly into the back of the system. Okay. Another kind of cool thing is going to be here, this little packet. You're actually going to get a secondary set of switches that come included inside the box right there, along with actually a switch puller. So I can actually show you guys this here. And we're actually going to disassemble the mouse and show you how you can swap out the switches right there. But you get actually your switches. These are optical switches. And then from there right here, your switch puller. Okay. Make sure you want to check the actual included information if at the time when it is available, if it will actually include the optical based switches, okay? That might not be a guarantee. You may actually have maybe a different set of switches that might be included, maybe a secondary set of alternate Japanese Omron mechanical switches, as opposed to what comes normally inside, which are going to be our new premium ROG red micro switches. So just like we have custom switches on our keyboard, we now have our own in-house switches that we've gone ahead and designed and developed. And I'll definitely be showing you guys what are some of the differences there. And if we take a look there at the inside, one other item is you're going to see right there, you've got the 4 included feet. These are our high performance PTFE feet that come included. So you're going to get essentially the set that comes on the mouse, and then you're also going to have a set inside the box. Might be kind of something small, but you might not realize that if you go and order a set of replacement feet online, these can cost you between about maybe $6 to $10, sometimes even a little bit more than that. So the fact that you get these already included inside the box and you get another set of switches along with the ROG Paracord cable, I think you actually get a really nice bundle all together with the Gladius III, okay? So let's go ahead now and take a closer look at kind of really one of the spotlights here for this mouse, which is going to be the actual ROG switches. So I'm going to show you guys here this cool little shot right here that I've got. Okay, so let me go ahead and just get this situated for you guys. So here you can see the Gladius III, and here I've got a wide range of micro switches. If you guys aren't familiar, essentially micro switches are really what make everything happen when you click these buttons. Underneath here, you have a micro switch for the left and for the right. And these are just essentially different types of micro switches that you have available on the market. You've got everything from GM2s to TTCs to GM8s, GM4s. We've got Cherry switches. We've got Omron-based switches. A lot of different micro switches, and just very similar to kind of like the micro switches that you have on, on a keyboard. Different switches are going to have different kind of operating characteristics. Some are going to be softer, some are going to be quieter, and some are going to be easier to actuate, and some are going to require a little bit more force. But the ones that are really special right here are going to be these guys, and this is going to be our ROG micro switch. So you'll actually see right there, I'll show you guys some closer shots, but this is our in-house custom switch. It has very, very high performance, 70 million rated in terms of its actual lifespan. It uses actually electroplated gold contacts on the inside to help to essentially reduce oxidation, because as your hands get sweaty, it will travel on the inside of the membrane and actually cause fatigue and failure over time. And then from there, they have a really nice, clean, consistent, audible click to them. You don't really have to worry about phantom clicks or double clicks here with these ROG micro switches. So we're going to actually show you kind of how this all comes together here. So in terms of kind of how this works, it's a pretty straightforward process. One of the really cool things that we kind of can do here with these mice is going to be the ability to kind of customize everything, where you of course can have the switches the way that you want them. If you want to be able to have something that is softer, quieter, or even, like I said, higher performing. The cool thing is that with the Gladius III, it's going to be the first mouse on the market that supports not only traditional micro switches, but also optical switches through the use of what we call our ROG push-fit socket design. This is the second generation push-fit socket design as opposed to the one that we've had on pretty much all of our other mice for quite a number of generations. So let me actually go ahead and show you how this works. It's a pretty straightforward process. You'll see underneath, right, you've got your 4 points right here. You've got these actual 2 little rubber grommets right there. So we just go ahead and remove these rubber grommets. Give me 1 second here. Depends on kind of like what you're looking for. You can kind of do a couple of different things in terms of kind of using it. I've just got here a knife, but you don't need, of course, a knife. You can just use something like a utility knife would work really well if you want to be able to go ahead and just pull those out, or if you've got a small thin-tipped flathead screwdriver, that's all you're going to need. But really, to change your switches, all you really need is actually going to be just a precision tip screwdriver. Generally, I recommend a 0 rated tip. Once you go ahead and do the 0 rated tip, you are going to then ideally want to use the little keycap, the switch puller that we include, and that's it. From there, just go ahead and unscrew this and pull out the switches. So let's actually go ahead and do this demo for you guys live here so you can actually see what this looks like. So here you can see I went ahead and removed the grommet. You can see right there, I removed that guy. So just set that aside there. I'm going to take my screw here. And the great thing is here, you don't have to do any soldering, right? Traditionally, to change out your switches, you'd have to have a soldering iron, and it's a bit more of a process. While it's not super complicated, of course, it can be a little bit more kind of concerning whether or not you might do it correctly, and you could actually damage something. So that is really one of the key benefits right here. From there, all you need to do is just pull off the shell, and you can see right there, I've gone ahead and now have full access to the body. So super simple. And you can see right there, we have our actual optical switches that are in there. Normally, it would actually come included with our ROG microswitches. So I'm just going to show you, I'm going to swap out to the ROG microswitches. So all I need to do is just pull this switch out. You can do it with your finger. It just depends if you have enough dexterity in your fingers to do it. You can see right there, I was able to do that right there. Take my switch, put it in there, and that's it. You've gone ahead and done it. Super simple, super easy, right? I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here. And there we go. Remove that. And now go ahead and same thing. Take my ROG micro switch and pop that in there. So now I have gone ahead and installed the 2 ROG micro switches in there. So that's what would default come included with them. From there, all I needed to go is just pop that back on. But you'll actually also be able to see here the actual inside where we do actually have a bit of a kind of honeycomb composition that we've gone ahead and utilized, but still actually don't use that on the exterior, but still was able to really lighten down the weight for this mouse to really be able to offer, I think, a great experience in terms of its overall weight characteristics. But from there, I just need to essentially go ahead and put that back on, and that's it. Very, very simple to be able to change out your switches. And then from there, I just need to screw back in those 2 screws. Excuse me, I need to thread those 2 screws back in place, and we're good to go. Now I'll show you some closer tied up shots right here in a moment. But you know, if I wasn't having to kind of go through this with you guys, literally you can do this in less than a minute. It's very, very straightforward. Very, very easy. You don't have to worry about damaging anything. And again, you have the flexibility. You can kind of change things up and go with what you want. Now, the ROG microswitches are outstanding. We also have a new design that we call our zero-click latency design, where we have a pivoted base mechanism, which actually helps to ensure that this actually mechanism right here, the actual button itself, is directly making contact with the top of the switch, so that even with our ROG microswitch, even though it's mechanical, you essentially get almost near the performance that you would do with an optical based switch, which of course, just like we know, compared to a mechanical based switch, offers the best essentially latency performance. But really, it's ultimately up to you. You can use the ROG microswitch, you could use these Omron optical switches, or you could kind of switch things out to other types of switches. Even if you kind of want to guys get kind of crazy, you can do some really cool hacks where we probably won't spend too much time talking about this, but if you guys want to get really creative and show you something kind of cool here. where you could do something like this. These right here, we do have an official list, guys, if you want to see exactly which official switches we support. But these right here are silent switches. You could actually sand these down a little bit, play around with them, and you could put those inside. You could actually fit those inside of your mouse. It's kind of a hack, but you could fit those inside there. So if you're somebody that actually doesn't want an audible click and you want something to be super quiet, you could do that. So that's kind of pretty cool, pretty crazy that you have that flexibility of doing that. So once you screw that in, there you go. And now you've changed out your switches. Really straightforward. No issues right there. It's an overall really easy way to be able to customize the experience, right? Between all the kind of the different options that you have available to you. Okay, give me 1 second here, guys. All right. Give me 1 sec here. See if I can plug this in. All right. So that is going to be the ROG micro switch. Now we'll do a little bit of the rest of kind of tour in terms of kind of some of the other buttons that you're going to have here. But you've got a really nice encoder, which is going to be the scroll wheel that offers one illumination zone. So let me actually go ahead and just connect that right there. You have the encoder with one illumination zone. You have the encoder, excuse me, the ROG logo down here, which has one lighting zone. And then also on the side is also going to be another RGB lighting zone. So in total, 3 lighting zones, but you'll see that that's also a bit different than what we had in the previous generation with the Gladius II, which had the underglow body. Then from there, the ROG logo, and then the encoder, which also had that. So we still do offer the Gladius 2 if you want that. Just kind of keep that in mind that there's a little bit of difference. There is actually a little bit of kind of surface detailing right here on the sides, which actually allow for kind of side grip adhesion. Okay, you've got your 2 buttons right here, and then you have your DPI button right there that is also going to allow you for quick adjustments. So 2 buttons, the encoder, DPI button, and then from there, 2 buttons there. Okay, so very straightforward in terms of the overall layout on the mouse. We'll go ahead and just do a quick tour right here with the close-up cam for you guys. And then we'll show you a couple of other things in terms of software, because I think some people kind of have certain conceptions of the Armory Crate software. And so I want to give you guys kind of an update in terms of kind of what that software interface looks like, and a new function that we've introduced specifically for the Gladius III, which is actually pretty cool for those of you that are kind of doing certain games where you're kind of doing a lot of continual clicks to be able to execute certain items in melee combat or for kind of shooting. So you can see right there, like I talked about, 1 button, 2 buttons right there. This is using the pivoted base design, really nice clean composite. Of course, black base body, the encoder right there, DPI right there. Your 2 side buttons right there. You can see the side grip texture, okay? Your Omni feet right there, your storage bay for the actual RF. You can then see your profiles, which you can store directly on board and you can toggle back and forth between. There is the pairing button and then the toggle button for off to wireless to Bluetooth transmission. And then you can also see another texture right there on the side, okay? All right, guys, so let me go ahead and get some images loaded in here so I can show you guys a couple of things quickly. Give me 1 sec, and I'll also check to see if there's kind of any questions here, so give me 1 sec. So Sean, actually interesting. So Sean's asking here, are there kind of any better switches if you click a lot? And what I would actually say is that the ROG micro switches that we already include with the mouse are really outstanding for that. For one, they already offer extremely high lifespan. So some of the switches on the market might offer, 5 million, 10 million, maybe 20 million. You're starting to see some that are a little bit more than that. Some that might be even 50 million. The ROG micro switches support 70 million, so they're very high performance, so they're going to have a long lifespan. And the other key part is, I'll show you here in the images, but the inside, the actual plating is a gold plating with electrical contact. As I said, that's important because your hand actually sweats. There's a little bit of humidity that kind of travels through, along with kind of beads of moisture that can affect the intercontact, and that contact can weaken and fatigue. And so we actually have plated that to reduce the level of oxidation, so that helps to maintain the long performance over time. So I think that from that perspective, if you click a lot, The ROG microswitches are already outstanding, and if you really kind of are somebody that wants the fastest performance and you don't potentially want to have to deal with any type of debounce delay, although we've tuned very, very specifically to be able to offer very good performance for that, then the optical switches that are an option for the Gladius 3 are going to be, I think, a good choice for you. So it really just comes down to kind of your preference in that regard as far as what do you think makes sense. So your choice, it just comes down to, what you think makes sense for your preference. So you kind of have to try things out in that regard. The cool thing is, though, you can kind of play around with it by swapping out the switches. To get, again, some switches right here, if I showed you guys, showed you a little bit earlier, right? Just here, just some of the switches that are available on the market. These are switches only a few dollars, so you can spend a couple of dollars, about $5 probably for a pack, and you can get sometimes just two, or you can get multiples, and you can try different ones out and see what your experience is like. And the great thing is, because there's no soldering involved, you can kind of change this out to what you kind of have a preference for. So it's up to you in terms of what you think makes sense for kind of your setup in terms of how you're working with your mice. Okay, so 1 second here. I need to plug in my flash drive to get you guys some images. Okay. Okay, here we go. So give me 1 second, guys. Okay, here we go. Found the images that I'm looking for. So yes, somebody's actually asking here as well, as do they actually have onboard memory? If you guys saw when I was touring the actual mouse, they do actually feature onboard memory. So you do actually have profiles available to you that you can go ahead and set up and customize, that. So that's a great thing there, is that there is onboard memory that you can go ahead and tune and tailor. I believe on the Gladius 3, I'll have to double check, but I think it's a total of 3 profiles that you have available. So there's a pretty good amount of profiles that you have flexibility that you can kind of play with. Okay. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, guys. So let me check to see here if we've got kind of any additional questions for you guys there. But kind of gone over, I think, a lot of the key elements here. Just recapping some of the kind of core specifications. If you're kind of wondering about, it's a 19,000 DPI, but it's been specially tuned by us. So the tuning actually does support up to 26,000 in terms of the DPI. The other kind of thing that might be a little bit kind of tricky to understand, but there's actually something that you call actually deviation between the actual switches when they're actually produced. And so the standard that you're generally going to have is going to be about 15 gram force deviation between sometimes your left and your right. And so with the ROG micro switches, one thing that we do focus on is ensuring that the actual deviation tolerance is much tighter between those. So we actually focus for only a 5 gram force deviation between the two. So that actually does require a bit more kind of tighter tolerances to be able to ensure a more consistent experience. So even though people kind of tend to be more predominantly kind of heavy with one finger versus the other, so you might use, like, let's say, the right a little bit more than you might do the left click, or vice versa. It just depends on kind of your preference, how you use your mouse and kind of everything along like that. There's going to be a more consistent experience between the two. So that is going to be kind of one of those things that, even outside of the kind of upgrade benefits that we have, that is going to be a differential that you're going to have with an ROG micro switch compared to, let's say, your traditional switches. There's also going to be a difference in terms of the housing. With the actual housing design that we have on the Gladius 3, that push fit switch design version 2, it actually features an actual housing, and the housing helps to produce more stability and essentially more consistency, that when you do put in the switch, it has actually less movement to the left and to the right when you're consistently clicking down on it. So overall, kind of in every way compared to even the prior generations, we have improved upon the overall experience with what you have within Push Fit 2 that you didn't have available to you within Push Fit 1. And really the main big benefit though is that, of course, you can support both your ROG microswitch as well as these brand new Omron switches. And so one is going to be a 3-pin, that's going to be your optical switches, and then one's going to be a you have your 5-pin optical, and then you have your 3-pin. So those are going to be the two types that you have available to you there. Okay. So give me 1 second here, guys. Okay, there we go. All right, so let me just see here if we've got any kind of under the questions that might be present right here. I think we're looking pretty good. Doesn't seem like that. And also we've got our great colleague Van from the ASUS team that's also there in the chat, that's again helping and handling kind of any questions there. So if you guys have any questions, of course, you can feel free to drop them in there. And if I'm not catching them, then my colleague Van will definitely do our best. And as always too, you can always hit us up on our social media channels and our PCDIY Facebook group, where I do weekly streams and dives into our products and our features and functions and so much more. So if you want to get kind of deeper insights into any one of these products or any specific questions or recommendations that we haven't talked about right here, feel free to go ahead and tag me there in the group, and I'll do my best to go ahead and follow up with you guys. So no issues in that regard. I think beyond that, no other kind of big items there. It's a 1000 hertz in terms of the actual polling rate. It also, like I said, features our zero-click latency-based design. But I did talk a little bit earlier about that with the ROG Armory Crate software. There are some kind of updates or enhancements that we've made not only within the Claymore II based keyboard, but you're also going to have with the Gladius 3 mouse. And so what are going to be some of those items? Well, the cool thing is that under your kind of your wireless Aura support, you do actually have the ability to do ASUS Aura wireless sync. So that is going to be a difference kind of compared to the prior generation where you couldn't have Aura sync and wireless. So that is going to be a differential. You're also going to have the ability to control and customize your devices via the Armory Crate software without actually leaving the Aura Sync essentially kind of mode. We also have added a new performance mode for some of you that might not be familiar. Aura and Armory Crate has gone through multiple versions. The first version of the software actually for our peripherals was only called Armory, and now we have actually moved everything over to Armory Crate, which has actually gone through now 4 major kind of updates, and we're on version 4. Version 4 is actually quite solid. It's stable. It's very usable in terms of its overall core experience, and we have lots of updates that we're going to keep rolling out to improve the stability, functionality, and the key experience. But a couple of cool things is that we did enable a performance mode for those of you that kind of have a lot of devices. Maybe you've got everything from kind of like your headphone to your motherboard, your graphics card, your keyboard, your mouse, your gaming surface. We did actually enable a mode to actually have even more consistent and faster lighting throughout all those connected devices. For default, though, I can tell you, though, that some people are kind of wondering about like CPU utilization or stuff like that. You'll actually find that the actual usage here is lower than standard applications like NVIDIA applications that run residently within your system. It's actually ranked by Windows Task Manager as a low usage based item. It's going to be generally for even, let's say, like 4 devices. So if you have like a gaming surface, a keyboard, and a mouse, and a headset, it's going to be, 0.1%, 0.2%, 0.3%. It's overall very low. You generally will not find that even with the active lighting surface that it's going to be readily kind of affecting your overall experience. And we've also made some cool updates within the software to even add more functionality. Like we have our new Hyperfire technology, which is essentially going to be an option that you can enable, and essentially will allow you to essentially mimic rapid successive keep depressions even faster than you could do them in melee or for kind of things like a single shot or kind of like semi-automatic based gun. So you can go ahead and enable this function. Of course, you wouldn't use it competitively. You wouldn't want to use this, just in normal gameplay experience if you're looking for a little bit of an edge, but you could toggle this function on and then essentially depress that and be able to have melee action combat and also be able to take advantage of firing that would be much, much faster than what would traditionally really be possible possible by you kind of consistently and successively clicking the mouse. So that is an option that's also available within the Armoury Crate software. But you know, if there are those of you that, of course, don't want to utilize the software, the wireless functionality and the standard functionality will work on its own. And because of the onboard profiles, you do have the ability to kind of store different functions and elements built on board and then not utilize the software. So the choice is entirely up to you. But I definitely would say if you haven't kind of tried it out, you can definitely try it out. And I think that the overall experience will be quite positive, especially if you're running kind of a clean OS environment where you don't have maybe any legacy software, other kind of competing RGB software that could potentially cause you an issue. So let me just see here. Hey, Sean, thanks for the feedback. Really great to know that you're having a positive experience with Armoury Crate. And I do agree. I think that I know there are definitely users out there that have had experience that haven't always been positive, but you know, we've extensively spent a huge amount of time and effort to put a lot of resources into it. As you may or may not be aware, really Armoury Crate and ROG Aura is going to be the largest kind of RGB ecosystem in the industry. It works on everything from our laptops to our desktops to all of our components, to, of course, all of our peripherals. So it's a massive kind of commitment that we're putting in to continue to evolve the feature and the functionality experience that we have. And we also do have a supplemental piece of software that we call Aura Creator. And Aura Creator is a secondary kind of more advanced application that if you want to have more tailored options to be able to kind of individually do per LED lighting for certain types of devices, you have those available to you. So you can do some kind of really cool things with things like adaptive coloring that can kind of match your active windows, music adjustments, and you have a lot of different presets. By default, I think you have 10 presets available to you within the Gladius 3 that you can go ahead and kind of tweak and tune and tailor. And then, of course, you have your more kind of wide range of customization that you have available through the Aura Creator software. Okay. All right, guys. I think overall that covers really everything that we wanted to be able to touch on here, kind of when we dived into the Gladius 3 as well as the Claymore II. So I think these are going to be two great options for you guys in terms that if you're looking for kind of premier wireless-based options, then you can definitely do that. And the other cool thing is you can definitely check out our ASUS eStore where we've got bundles where you can even kind of go with an all-wireless setup where, you know, if you wanted to get your Gladius 3 wireless, you wanted to do your Claymore II Gladius, your Claymore II wireless keyboard, and even something like our ROG Strix 2.4 Go wireless headset or ROG Strix BT headset, which is also wireless. You could have everything entirely working in a wireless kind of setup. It's all low latency, very high quality experience, and you know, doesn't have to be limited to kind of a physical connection. But at the same time, you can also then switch back out to hardline based connections if that's, you know, the scenario, the environment, and the setup that you need that. So a lot of options that are available to you in terms of kind of getting everything set up. So with that, guys, take care, take it easy, enjoy the rest of your day. And of course, if you guys, like I said, have any questions, comments, feedback, feel free to go ahead and drop it down in the comment section below, or you can go ahead and hit us up on our ASUS social media channels, or check me out in the ASUS PCDR Facebook group. So with that, take care, take it easy, enjoy the rest.